Welcome to the LynnCAM TV Show, a show which focuses on local organizations, municipalities, and nonprofits here in the city of Lynn. Here with me today, two elitists of the Highlands Coalition. Thank you guys for being here, Wendy Jospeh and David Gass. Guys, I appreciate you giving us some time. We're here to talk about the Highlands Coalition as a whole. For those at home who don't know, there's a lot to this. We've got a 28-minute program, so we're going to try to get in as much as possible. Before we get into the organization as a whole, let's talk a little bit about you guys, your backgrounds, and how you're involved. Wendy, we'll start with you.
Well, Sean, thank you for having us here. The Highlands Coalition has been going on for around 5 years, and it's a very exciting time where we're just getting big enough that we need to do a little bit of organizational restructuring. So I just came into the executive directorship from being a regular member, and David was the past executive director, taught me everything that I knew, and actually pulled me in off the street, taught me all about community and working for the whole, and it's literally David's mission.
Yeah, Dave, you're a big pioneer to this whole thing, right? Let's learn a little bit about how you're involved right now.
I am involved in many parts of this organization. We actually began by planting trees going up through the Highlands. Got a grant from DCR, plant trees. I knocked on Wendy's door and she said, "Yeah, I want a tree." I said, "Okay." And what followed was meeting people and finding out what the problems were. The idea of a community organization, community means common unity. You find out what people have in common and work on solving problems. So the background is that after we planted trees, we were invited to meet at the school by Dr. Crane, principal. Ford Schools is a community school, and it's there not to educate. Part of educating is to help solve social problems in the neighborhood that kids bring into the school. And so we're trying to work on that. We built the garden there a few years later, and we won many awards at the garden. We'll tell you about that,
Yeah.
if you like. And then we expanded we took 3 parks, and there are 3 parks in the Highlands, and we're trying to rebuild those parks.
So, I mean, there's a lot on your list of things to do. I think it definitely makes sense to talk a little bit about the history before we get into the organization too in depth. I mean, the history of the Highlands, I mean, which one of you guys can speak to that a little bit more? Because as some of us may know, its reputation isn't that great. And I think that's why the coalition came into existence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Highlands from way back in the day was the very beginning of where the immigrants came into Lynn.
Okay.
They worked at the factories downtown. The Highlands was the closest neighborhood, and that's how it is even to this day. This is, in a city of immigrants, the Highlands is the actual neighborhood of the entree to every single immigrant group, and it's the most diverse small area in the city of Lynn. So with that comes very special problems, and that's what we're here to do, is to listen to the problems and focus on things that people come to us and say, "Look, this is an issue for us," and that's where we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably around. I mean, we're not definitely the pioneers of like mixing cultures, but anytime that you hear any stories about cultures kind of working and living together, you have a conflict because there's a difference. There's a difference between lifestyle. There's a difference between what's ethical, what a value is. So I mean, you're obviously going to have some conflict. So it is important that the coalition exists. For those viewers at home who may not know about it in its entirety, how would you explain the Highlands Coalition to somebody who is just learning about it?
The Highlands Coalition is a social justice organization, and we advocate for the people of the Highlands, who, because of disenfranchisement, economic, social, they don't have as big a voice as they could have in getting their fair share of services or anything that you could name from the city. So, for example, we're trying to restore a polling place up to the Ford School in the Highlands, where it was about 10 years ago. And we presented before the very new Human Rights Commission, and they took their time and were very measured, but came back with a unanimous vote to suggest to the City Council that the voting be returned to the Ford School and that the Council work with the Highlands Coalition. So now it's in the hands of the City Council, but we're working the steps and seeing what we can do to improve the neighborhood.
So being so politically involved, advocacy nowadays is kind of like a dirty word when it comes to politics. Although when you look up its basic definition, I mean, that's what America is. I mean, there are advocates all over the place for everything. Is that a word that you guys would use to kind of describe what you do on a day-to-day basis?
I think we own that, and David can talk about how we also advocate for economic justice, for example, with the food in the gardens. If you're under a certain, if you could only buy so much food, the garden in the summer, of course, is going to help you greatly expand your options.
Yes. I'll talk about the gardens.
Sure.
The idea of the garden is, the garden is a peace center. It deals with food, because food, we spend a huge amount of time and effort on food, plus the food is the cause of most disease, such as heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, especially among low-income minority people. It's a real problem. So the idea of this garden is to teach, become a science center for the children, so they learn science and math. They learn geography from the garden, from planting crops that almost no crops that we eat here were from the United States, were from America. They're from all other parts of the world. And because it's an international garden, we're trying to bring in food from different countries. I think there's 17 languages spoken at the school.
Wow.
So that people come in from Nigeria and tell us, this is a weed. No, we say this is a weed. And they say, no, this is what we ate. This is kalalu from Nigeria. We eat it. So we're learning, people from Cambodia tell us that this is a food that they ate, and we thought it was a weed. So we're learning a lot about different cultures. The children learn a lot. And they have won over 50 prizes at the Topsville Fair because they plant and they submit to Topsville Fair for vegetables.
And Sean,
That's cool.
I'd like you to understand how extraordinary that story is. When David started that garden from nothing and built it on actual blacktop outside the school, the children didn't even know where a carrot came from. They thought it came from the grocery store. They definitely didn't know it came from the ground. And they definitely didn't know that it came from this little baby seed. And for them to be able to know that, plant it, nurture it, watch it grow, and watch it become this thing within one season, and then winning their first prizes at Topsfield Fair. They just want to drink in that knowledge. They are so ready to be educated. And part of this immigration with the GED program and getting your citizenship program at the school, it all goes together. We basically think of America as a melting pot, but it's really almost like a chowder. You still have
I like that.
You still have very distinct communities, and we're not trying. In order to become American, you don't have to become white bread or Americanized. You bring your culture in, and we all benefit from it.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that they're learning is it's project-based learning. We have a teacher down over at Linwoods Elementary who's trying to teach project-based learning to her third grade class. And, it comes down to preparation, being able to plan, presentation, personality. I mean, all those are very important things that we need to learn as kids. But agriculture, too. I mean, when it comes down to it, right, basic necessities, food, clothing, and shelter, without society and without these huge conglomerates having, food markets here right available to us in Lynn, it comes down to agriculture. Having that skill, I think, isn't only just a necessity as a human being, but it's a luxury nowadays. And you guys are teaching that. That's phenomenal. So let's talk about some of the continuous improvements. Ford School is it's a big spot for you guys. A lot of your events are held there, a lot of your meetings, forums, and there are always good turnouts. I mean, we try to get down there to most of them, but you usually there's always over 25. And it's usually around 50 to 60. And I think the last one that I was at, the Equal Rights Commission, the Equal Rights Forum, there was at least 100 people there.
And why do you think that is?
I think because you guys are so active in what you do, you're not expecting anything for nothing. You put forth an effort, And that's what happens. Cream rises to the top when you do that. And I think that that's what it's attributed to is you two and your efforts, as well as some of the other advocates that you work alongside with who weren't able to join us today. Of course, it's important to mention them too, but it's just because of people like you. The Highlands Coalition, the organization as a whole, it just intrigues me, and I've become a little bit more interested in it because I see a huge strength in the community. I think that is going to bring America back as communities. Rather than have 50 strong states, if we have hundreds of thousands of small, strong communities, then we can start making progression. Do you know of any other organizations like yours that exist? Maybe you could do a compare and contrast of what they try to achieve to what you try to achieve?
Well, I agree with you that we are unique in how we go about it. And I have a bad cut there. Let's see. You want to take that?
Yeah, I want to just say something that will give you an example of what we do, why we're unique. After we built the garden, we wanted to expand, and we were looking at the parks. There are 3 parks in the Highlands: High Rock, Henry Avenue, and Cook Street Park. Several years ago, we got a grant from Mayor Clancy and started rebuilding Henry Avenue Park. We restored the basketball hoops, and we were very important in that, and we built a structure. We looked at a Cook Street Park as a way of expanding. Cook Street Park had been taken over, a small kind of a pocket park, by gangs and drinking, and to the point that people wouldn't send their kids there. So with the support of the Parks Commission and DPW, we built a garden. And with the Food Project was our ally as well. We built a garden there. You know what happened? The gangs didn't show up. The kids started to return. The families started to bring their families. And the dog walkers started to curb their dogs so that it became a cleaner park. And this time we want to expand and help the city put equipment there. So it's but you need to have, like you said, a community organization. So we're trying to organize a street organization, the Cook Street, Friends of Cook Street Park, for example, to protect the city investment in this because equipment had been burned previously. So that is very important to have an organization that is formed on a street-by-street level. You can curb crime that way.
Yeah.
Police can't do everything.
Right.
They come in after the fact very often. So you need more eyes on the street by this, and that's part of what we're trying to do.
Heck yeah, I mean, the more neighbors that you've got involved, without a doubt. I think that the crime will cease because people aren't out to hurt innocent people. A lot of crime is, done to the self. It's also done to others in order, drugs are a big problem throughout the whole entire nation. And the motivator behind it is generating money. You need some type of income in order to pay for your drugs and be able to use. And if you have a presence of the community there, then those people don't have any place to go. They can't go to that park and lay down on the bench and do whatever they want to do because there are people who are there and they're active. And I think that the humanistic side of things, one thing, you don't want to get caught, you don't want to get in trouble, so that's a reason why that they leave. But also, I mean, there has to be some certain sense of like, hey, I can't do this in front of kids, or if there's a family over there, I need to go somewhere else.
Right.
So just having that, I think meeting your neighbors, there's a huge strength in that. Going out, introducing yourself. You don't have to be with them every day, just, hey, how's it going? Nice to see you. Hey, I saw some guy walk down your driveway today. I don't know if you knew him. Yeah, that's my neighbor. I told him to come on down. Okay, good, just looking out. I mean, that type of stuff creates awareness. And it would be interesting to see more of Lynn come together and try to make those efforts, without a doubt. We're going to get into some of the continuous improvements that you guys are talking to. Definitely, you've got some grants coming up. You've got some events going on. But before we get into that too much, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back from that break, we'll learn a little bit more about what the Highlands Coalition will be focusing on this quarter. Stay tuned.
lend a hand, give a can. What's your motivation?
Welcome back to the LynnCAM TV Show. If you're just joining us at home, here with me today, Wendy Jospeh David Gass of the Highlands Coalition. We're talking about some of their continuous improvements, their organization as a whole, and what their value is to the community. During the break, we were talking about how your organization differs from others like yours in the same sector almost. Community advocacy, reaching out to your neighborhoods. Now the lead abatement program. Tell me about that, Wendy. What's that mean?
This is a wonderful program that we're doing in conjunction with the Lynn Housing Authority, where advocacy people go and knock door to door and tell our neighbors about this lead abatement program that gets significant benefits, whether or not you're a homeowner or a renter. How much money are they able to
The average, the city will pay for lead abatement, average is $8,000 per unit.
Wow.
Which is very good.
It's a significant program, but while you're going door to door, you're meeting your neighbor, you're giving them information, you're helping them qualify for this excellent program. And in addition, you're saying, what are some of your concerns, as well as, do you know that we have these things going on? Come join us.
Yeah. And so another thing is kind of just being aware of what your options are as well. A lot of, like you had said, it's a, I don't really like to use the word melting pot, but there's definitely a big mix of cultures up there in the Highlands. And a lot of these people are new to the whole American culture, so they don't really know what all their options are.
Exactly.
So it's important that you guys you're going out, you're knocking on doors, and I mean, it's almost like, there are a lot of people at home who go about and they go to their job and, you know, like me, sometimes I just don't want to deal with anybody. It's like, how do you find the energy to do this? It's a huge undertaking.
Well, it's got to be a passion, and we like to follow where things go on their own organically. So, for example, this Highlands History Project, which was a grant from Mass Humanities, where we filmed elders and new immigrants in the Highlands. And we utilized students from Lynn Public Schools, 7th grade, all the way through seniors at North Shore Community College to be the interviewers. And the basic premise was, with all the immigrants coming in, the stories of back in the day, and the way that you do things, the way that you become an American, that chain of storytelling down through the generations is broken because you have new people coming in all the time.
Yeah.
And in addition, because teaching to the MCAS students in Lynn who might have lived here all their lives or maybe 2 generations, they're not taught a lot of Lynn history.
Yeah.
So for part of this Mass Humanities History of the Highlands project, what we did is taught crash course in Lynn history to the children, and they were flabbergasted at the rich history here, and very, very excited to be able to have that knowledge as they engage the elders or as they engage the new immigrants. We were speaking with families who'd been here for 200 years, as well as a gentleman who came in from Iraq who had been in the Highlands for about 2 years at the time that we interviewed him.
Wow.
So an extremely wide range of stories. But the thing that surprised us, from no matter where they came from and how long they'd been here, was, I love Lynn. And it was very, very surprising and heartwarming to hear that come out of the mouths of so many different people.
Yeah.
With all these different stories.
Yeah, a lot of people who visit Lynn for the first time, I do hear them say that. Mm-hmm. We had a lady, Alison Brooks, on here who's a volunteer for the Lynn Shelter Association, and she's from the UK, and she's an advocate for the homelessness, and she's out there reaching out to these people, letting them know what their options are. And I'm like, why? And she's like, I don't know. For some reason, I just love Lynn. And the city definitely it breeds pride. Not for everybody, but the names that you recognize, like the Newhalls, they've been in Lynn since forever. I mean, all those guys have pride in what they do. I mean, a lot of these citizens who have been here and have family history here, have a huge, significant amount of pride. You had mentioned to me some interesting piece of history, Lynn. I'm not a huge advocate for the Lynn, City of Sin thing. I'm trying to be one of those guys who says Lynn, City of Win. Now, I always thought it was attributed to the 80s, what had happened up in the Highlands. But you had mentioned to me that this actually goes way back, probably like maybe the 1920s.
Actually, more towards the turn of the century.
Wow.
As David keeps schooling me, because I'm only a recent Lynn transplant, there used to be a huge amount of movie theaters.
There were 7 movie theaters in Lynn, and it was a very vibrant city. Well, it was a shoe city, and then GE took over as the main employer. And it was always welcoming to immigrants. The immigrant philosophy is the future. They look at the past as something tough. My father came from Russia through the revolution. He never went back. He put it in the back of his mind. The future was in Lynn, and that's what why immigrants are so positive. When someone from the UK comes here, they see the positiveness in the people. The struggle that it takes is very important. So Lynn has come along with ups and downs like a lot of cities have, and the rebound is what we're trying to do here, build a new city.
Well, keep at it. I think you guys are doing a great job. Wendy, you had a point?
Right. I was just saying, too, with those movie theaters, before the movies came along, it was vaudeville, and which was a little bit racy. So as I believe the people from Lynn Museum have had me to understand, it was people coming to Lynn to see those shows that they couldn't get in Salem or Marblehead necessarily. And that's where you got that City of Sin designation, that there are these kind of racy shows that you could come to Lynn and come see.
Really? Okay. So that's a little bit more fun. I always think like the era, I definitely should have been alive from like 1900 to 1920. I think that I would have fit in really well there. But here I am, 2014. So can't go back.
You had been drafted in the Army. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I love war. Well, I don't love, like, war history is something that's an interest of mine, but only because I feel as though it's pertinent to study. But go ahead, Dave, sorry.
I just want to say something also, is that our garden is a community garden.
Okay.
And it's open to any time you see us. People drive by constantly. They drive by and they say, oh, come on and be with us. The policy is if you work there, the food is free. And come on and talk with us. And the same thing with the Cook Street Park garden and activities. It's open to everybody. It's not individuals owning it.
And it's a thank you. And as you know from every single culture, immigrant and American, people come together around food.
Now, you guys have some events coming up. The Folk Festival, Dave, you know a little bit more about that. Keep an eye on LynnCAM TV PSA scroll board so we can definitely play that and get that information out. We got about a little less than 5 minutes left. I want to save that and reserve that for the voting at Ford School. This is a big thing. We're trying to return voting back to Ford School. Tell me why.
Because voting is a responsibility as well as a right, and part of what Dr. Crane is helping the people be taught for the GED and the citizenship classes is how important voting is. And voting was taken away about 10 years ago, and we're very interested in getting it back so that people can actually have their own voice. The setup that they have right now is untenable. Voting in the Highlands is at least 30% down from before they took voting out.
It is kind of a secluded area in Lynn. I mean, you had mentioned before the show that the bus routes don't really go through the Highlands. Where they need to go now, where do they have to go now to go vote, voters in the Highlands?
The Highlands has been split down the middle for various reasons. Some people need to go to North Shore Community College to vote, and others go to St. Pius Church.
And that's a decent walk for those. I mean, you know, for a young man or woman ready, willing, and able, it's one thing. But for a citizen who may have been living in Lynn for 50 years, it gets a little bit more difficult to get out. So I think having votership at Ford School isn't almost important, it's imperative. I think that it's a huge, huge part of what you guys are trying to achieve over there, and I wish you the best of luck in it too. You must have been hitting some obstacles in the way. I mean, I'm not sure if like you really feel comfortable talking about that right now, because a lot of it's strategy, I'm sure, right? Making sure that you have the element of surprise. But on top of it, it's like, why wouldn't you provide another voting booth to voters here in Lynn? I mean, as a politician, I'm not saying I am, but it seems like that would be a benefit to you, right?
It would, and I'm not going to be talking about that.
Okay, fair enough. I wouldn't either, without a doubt. But I hope you guys achieve that. Now, you also have some events coming up. The Folk Festival, which is on what date?
It's on September 20th. We moved to September because the schools are in session. It's much better to have it then. It's all cultures, music, and food is what we're featuring.
And where is it?
It's at Heritage State Park on the waterfront.
Okay, great place, great location.
Beautiful.
There also is going to be a Frederick Douglass reading at High Rock Park. Tell me a little bit more about that, Wendy.
This is continuing my association with Mass Humanities, which gave us the grant for the History Project. They already had in place this Frederick Douglass reading, where they took a speech that Frederick Douglass gave before Congress, because Congress asked him, what is the 4th of July to the Negro? And he took umbrage with that. And so his response is some beautiful, eloquent words that we all read together, and then end up with the fireworks up in the tower at High Rock Park.
Heck yeah. A lot of people don't know Frederick Douglass had spent some time here in Lynn, so.
He wrote his first autobiography in Lynn,
Yeah.
and had about 4 houses here.
Very interesting stuff. History for sure, without a doubt.
Yes.
Well, that's our show for today. That's about all the time we're going to have. Wendy, David, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
From the studio here at LynnCAM TV, that's it for the LynnCAM TV show. I'm Sean Donahue, wishing Wendy and David all the best, and you at home as well. Thanks for tuning in.